She sat alone in that restaurant booth, staring at the empty chair across from her. 43 minutes. That's how long Madison Wells had been waiting. 43 minutes of pitying glances from the waitstaff. 43 minutes of checking her phone. 43 minutes of feeling like the biggest fool in Chicago. It was December 10th, 2 weeks before Christmas. The restaurant was decorated with twinkling lights and pine garland, full of couples laughing over wine and shared desserts. And there she was, 34 years old, wearing the emerald dress she'd bought specifically for this night, clutching a phone that refused to deliver any explanation. Brad wasn't coming. The man she'd been talking to for 6 weeks, who'd sent her good morning texts and late-night voice messages, who'd made her believe that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different, had stood her up without a word. But Madison had no idea that in exactly 2 minutes, a 6-year-old girl with blonde braids and a missing front tooth would walk up to her table and say 7 words that would change everything. "Miss, are you sad because you're alone? Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel across the world. This is a story about a blind date that never happened, a little girl who saw what adults miss, and the Christmas miracle that started with the courage to be honest about heartbreak. Let's back up 6 hours. Madison Wells had been nervous all day. Not first date nervous, more like, please God let this one be different nervous. She was a medical researcher at Northwestern University, brilliant with data, but admittedly terrible at reading romantic signals. Since then, nothing but disappointing coffee dates and men who seemed allergic to emotional availability. She arrived 10 minutes early, like always. Madison was a woman who believed punctuality showed respect. 7:15 came and went. 7:30. She texted, "Hey, I'm here at the bar. No rush." 7:45. She called. Voicemail. By 8 o'clock, she'd moved from the bar to a booth, too embarrassed to keep standing alone. The hostess, a kind woman named Gabriella, had given her a sympathetic smile and seated her in a corner booth, away from the main crowd. 8:15. Finally, a text. But it wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation. That was it. 6 weeks of conversation. Hours of building hope. And she got 3 words. Madison stared at that message, feeling something crack inside her chest. Not her heart, she'd been careful not to invest too much. It was something else. Her faith, maybe. Her willingness to keep trying. That's when she heard it. A small voice. Miss, are you sad because you're alone?" Madison looked up, quickly wiping her eyes. Standing beside her booth was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, with strawberry blonde hair pulled into 2 thick braids tied with red ribbons, and the most earnest blue eyes Madison had ever seen. She wore a red velvet dress, the kind little girls wear to Christmas parties, and she was clutching a stuffed reindeer. "I what?" Madison managed. "You look sad," the girl said simply, tilting her head. "My daddy says when people look sad at restaurants, it's usually because they're eating alone or because someone was mean to them." "Which one is it?" Madison let out a surprised laugh-cry hybrid. That's a very observant question. "I'm Emma," the girl announced, as if this explained everything. "I'm 6 3/4. What's your name?" "Madison. That's a pretty name." "Like the city?" Yes, actually. My parents met there." Emma nodded solemnly, as if this was very important information. Then she looked over her shoulder toward a table across the restaurant where a man was half standing, clearly trying to see what his daughter was doing. "Daddy, she's nice," Emma shouted, causing several diners to glance over. Madison felt her face heat with embarrassment. The man, Emma's father, was walking toward them now. concern and apology written all over his face. "Emma, sweetheart, you can't just approach strangers. I'm so sorry, miss," he said, reaching Madison's booth. Madison got her first real look at him. Tall, maybe 6'1", sandy blonde hair that was slightly messy, like he'd run his hands through it a few times. Blue-grey eyes that matched his daughter's. He wore a navy sweater and jeans, nothing fancy, but he wore them well. There were worry lines around his eyes, the kind that come from responsibility, not age. He couldn't have been older than 36, 37. "It's okay," Madison said quietly. "She's fine, really. Emma has a habit of making friends everywhere we go," he explained, gently taking his daughter's hand. "She doesn't quite understand boundaries yet." "I understand lots of things, Daddy," Emma protested. "I understand that Lady is sad and eating alone, and that's not okay." The man, her father, closed his eyes briefly, and Madison could see him mentally counting to 10. "I'm Connor," he said finally, extending his free hand. "Connor Hayes. And this is my daughter, Emma, the world's most enthusiastic conversationalist." Madison shook his hand. His grip was warm, solid. "Madison Wells. And honestly, she's the nicest person who's talked to me all night." Something flickered across Connor's face. Understanding, maybe. Sympathy. "Were you stood up?" Emma asked bluntly. "MMA." Connor's voice was mortified. But Madison found herself laughing, a real laugh this time. Yeah, I was." Emma's face scrunched with indignation. "That's rude. Who would do that? You're so pretty." "Emma, we need to get back to our table. Can she eat with us?" Emma interrupted, looking up at her father with pleading eyes. "Please? She shouldn't eat alone on a sad night. You always say nobody should be alone when they're sad." Connor looked genuinely pained. "Emma, Madison probably has plans." "I don't," Madison heard herself say. The words came out before she'd even processed them. "I don't have plans. And honestly, your daughter's the first thing that's made me smile tonight." Connor studied her face for a moment, and Madison could see him weighing it, the awkwardness, the strangeness, the fact that they were complete strangers. "Are you sure?" he asked finally. "I know this is weird, and you don't owe us anything." "I'm sure," Madison said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "If you don't mind a pity party crasher." "It's not a pity party if we invited you," Emma declared confidently. "Right, Daddy?" Connor smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached his eyes and made small crinkles appear at the corners. "Right. Okay. Would you like to join us?" 5 minutes later, Madison found herself sitting at Connor and Emma's table, a fresh menu in front of her, feeling completely surreal about the turn her evening had taken. Emma sat between them, already chattering about her favorite things on the menu, completely unaware that she'd just saved a grown woman from crying alone in a restaurant bathroom. "So," Connor said, after they'd ordered, his voice gentle. "Bag blind date?" Madison nodded, taking a sip of the wine she'd finally allowed herself to order. 6 weeks of texting. I don't know what I thought. That I'd finally met someone decent, maybe. 6 weeks and he didn't even call to cancel. Connor's jaw tightened. "That's not just rude. That's cruel. My daddy would never do that," Emma announced proudly. "He's a gentleman. That's what Miss Carolyn says." "Who's Miss Carolyn?" Madison asked, grateful for the subject change. "Her babysitter," Connor explained. "Well, more like a grandmother figure at this point. She's been watching Emma since she was 2. 4 years, Madison calculated. That's a long time." Connor nodded, something flickering across his face. Sadness, maybe, or exhaustion. "Yeah, it's been just the 2 of us for a while now." Emma was distracted by the breadbasket that had arrived. picking out the softest roll with intense concentration. Madison felt the question on her tongue but hesitated. Connor seemed to sense it. Her mom left when Emma was 18 months old, he said quietly, glancing at his daughter to make sure she was occupied. Just left. One day I came home from work and there was a note on the kitchen counter. Said she couldn't do it anymore. Being a mom. Being a wife. She needed to find herself. Madison felt her chest tighten. Connor, I'm so sorry. He shrugged, but she could see the old pain in his eyes. It was 4.5 years ago. We've built a good life, Em and me. But yeah, some days are harder than others. Is that why you're here tonight? Madison asked. Special dinner for just the two of you. Connor's smile was tender as he looked at his daughter. Emma's been asking to come here for weeks. She saw it in a movie-fancy Italian restaurant with the white tablecloths and candles. She wanted to have a grown-up dinner with her dad before Christmas gets too crazy. I'm wearing my best dress, Emma added, looking up from her bread. And Daddy let me wear Grandma's necklace. Madison noticed it then, a delicate silver locket around Emma's neck. My mom's, Connor confirmed. She passed away 2 years ago. Emma never got to meet her, but I want her to have pieces of her grandmother with her. There was something about this man, this single father doing his best, taking his daughter to a fancy restaurant because she'd asked, carrying the weight of both parents on his shoulders, that made Madison's heart ache in a way she wasn't prepared for. So what about you? Connor asked, clearly wanting to shift the focus. Medical researcher at Northwestern. That sounds impressive. It sounds more impressive than it is, Madison admitted. I spend most of my time looking at cells through a microscope and writing grant proposals. Not exactly glamorous, but important, Connor said. What's your specialty? Autoimmune disorders. Specifically, trying to understand why the body sometimes attacks itself. Emma looked up, interested. Like when you're allergic to yourself. Madison smiled. Sort of, yeah. It's like your body's defense system gets confused and starts fighting the wrong things. That's sad, Emma said seriously. Bodies should be nicer to themselves. You know what, Emma? Madison said. That might be the most profound thing anyone said to me in months. Connor laughed a real, surprised laugh. She has her moments. Usually right before she does something that gives me a heart attack. As their food arrived, Madison found herself relaxing for the first time in hours. The conversation flowed easily. Connor told her about his job as an architect for a firm downtown. Emma shared every thought that entered her 6-year-old brain. And Madison discovered that she was genuinely enjoying herself. No pressure, no performance. Just connection. That she had no idea that the real story, the one that would change everything, was about to begin. Over pasta and wine, juice for Emma, the three of them fell into an easy rhythm. Madison learned that Connor had grown up in Naperville, that he'd studied architecture at University of Illinois, that his favorite building in Chicago was the Rookery, because it proves that beautiful things can last if you take care of them. Emma told Madison about her first-grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who let them have a class pet hamster named Mr. Whiskers. She explained, in great detail, her theory about why Santa probably had help from science elves, who studied which toys would make kids happiest. She's been asking some tough questions about Santa this year, Connor admitted, cutting Emma's chicken parmesan into smaller pieces without her even asking. And trying to keep the magic alive as long as possible. Daddy, I'm 6, Emma protested. I can cut my own chicken. Humor me, sweetheart. Madison watched them. Something warm and achy settling in her chest. There was such ease between them. Such obvious love. Connor was patient without being passive. Attentive without being controlling. And Emma, despite her boldness, clearly adored her father. Can I ask you something? Emma said suddenly, turning those big blue eyes on Madison. Sure. Why did that man not show up tonight? Did you guys have a fight? Asterisk asterisk. Music. Gentle, vulnerable. Asterisk asterisk. Madison set down her fork, considering. No, honey. We'd never even met in person. We were supposed to meet for the first time tonight. Then how did you know him? We met online. There are apps, websites, where people can talk to each other and get to know each other before they meet. Emma frowned. That seems backwards. How do you know if you like someone if you can't see their face? Connor smiled at Madison over his daughter's head. She's got a point. She does, Madison agreed. And honestly, I think I've been doing this all wrong. Spending weeks texting someone, building up this idea of who they are. And then they don't even have the decency to show up. Maybe he was scared, Emma suggested. Of what? Of meeting someone as pretty and smart as you. My daddy says sometimes people do mean things because they're scared inside. Madison felt tears pricking her eyes again, but this time they weren't from humiliation. Your daddy sounds like a pretty smart guy. He is, Emma said matter-of-factly. But he's also lonely sometimes. I can tell. Emma. Connor's voice held a warning note, but his face had gone slightly red. It's true, Daddy. You get that sad look when you think I'm not watching. Like you wish there was someone else here. The table went quiet. Madison could see Connor struggling with how to respond, caught between honest and age-appropriate, between vulnerability and protection. Everyone gets lonely sometimes, Em, he said finally. That's just part of being human. But I've got you, and that makes me the luckiest dad in the world. But don't you want someone to have dinner with? Someone who's not 6? Connor laughed despite himself. You're surprisingly good dinner company for a 6-year-old. 6 3/4, Emma corrected. Then she looked at Madison. Do you get lonely? Madison inhaled slowly. What a question. What a completely, devastatingly accurate question. Yeah, she admitted. Yeah, I do. I love my job and I have good friends. But sometimes I come home to my apartment and it's just quiet. And I wonder what it would be like to have someone to share things with. The good days and the bad days. Someone who'd care if I was running late, or having a hard time, or needed to talk about something. That's exactly what Daddy says, Emma exclaimed. He told Miss Carolyn that he misses having someone to share his life with. Someone who'd care about the little things. Connor looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. Emma. We don't need to share everything I say to Miss Carolyn. Why not? Madison gets it. She understands. And she did. God help her, she did. As they finished their entrees, Emma excused herself to go to the restroom. Connor started to get up, but she waved him off. Daddy, I'm in 1st grade. I can go to the bathroom by myself. I'll watch from here. Connor compromised. And you come right back. They both watched Emma weave through the tables, red dress swishing, clutching her stuffed reindeer. I'm sorry, Connor said immediately. She has absolutely no filter. I don't know where she gets it from. Because I'm usually the king of keeping things to myself. Madison smiled. Don't apologize. She's wonderful, Connor. Truly. She is, he agreed, pride evident in his voice. She's the best thing I've ever done. But sometimes I worry that I'm not enough. That she needs more than just me. From what I can see, you're doing an incredible job. Connor studied her for a moment. Can I ask you something? And you can tell me it's none of my business. Okay. Why online dating? I mean, you're clearly intelligent, successful, beautiful. Madison felt her cheeks warm. You think I'm beautiful? Connor didn't look away. I think any man who stood you up is an idiot who doesn't deserve a second chance. The air between them shifted, charged with something neither of them had planned for. I do online dating because I work 70-hour weeks, Madison said finally. Because I'm awkward at bars and terrible at reading signals. Because it's supposed to be easier to meet someone when you can be thoughtful about your messages, instead of trying to be witty in real time. But clearly, I'm still getting it wrong. I don't think you're getting anything wrong, Connor said quietly. I think you just haven't met someone who sees what I see. And what do you see? He leaned forward slightly. Someone who's brave enough to show up even when she's nervous. Someone who was kind to a random 6-year-old who invaded her space. Someone who ordered wine to get through a hard night, but switched to water as soon as she started talking to my daughter, because she wanted to be present. Someone who laughs at bad jokes and asks real questions and admits when she's lonely, instead of pretending everything's fine. Madison couldn't breathe. When was the last time someone had seen her, really seen her like that? Connor, I know this is crazy, he continued. I know we just met, but I've been on 3 dates in the past 4 years, and not one of them felt like this. Like I could actually be myself. Like I wasn't just going through the motions. 3 dates in 4 years? He nodded. It's hard when you have a kid. Most women hear single dad and they're out. Or they meet Emma and realize they're not ready for an instant family. Or they stick around for a few weeks and then decide it's too complicated. That's their loss, Madison said firmly. Is it? Because sometimes I wonder if I'm being fair to Emma, to whoever I'm dating, to myself, trying to fit someone new into a life that's already so full and so complicated. Madison reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. Connor, any woman who can't see what an incredible man you are, what an incredible father you are, doesn't deserve to be in your life. And Emma? She's not a complication. She's a gift. His fingers turned, intertwining with hers. You really mean that? I really do. They sat like that for a moment. Hands clasped across the table, both of them aware that something significant was happening, but neither quite ready to name it. Then Emma came bounding back, and they pulled apart, both slightly flushed. What did I miss? Emma asked, climbing back into her seat. Nothing, sweetheart, Connor said, but his eyes were still on Madison. Are we getting dessert? Emma asked hopefully. What do you think, Madison? Connor asked. Want to split the tiramisu? And Madison, who had been planning to spend this night crying into her pillow, smiled. I think that sounds perfect. The tiramisu arrived with 3 spoons. Emma immediately dug in with the enthusiasm only a 6-year-old could muster, getting cocoa powder on her nose. So, Connor said, wiping his daughter's face with a napkin, what does a medical researcher do for fun? Or is your whole life microscopes and grant proposals? Madison laughed. It's not quite that boring. I read a lot, mystery novels mostly. I volunteer at a community garden on the weekends. And I have a slightly embarrassing obsession with baking shows, even though I'm a terrible baker. What do you bake? Emma asked. Usually disasters. Last week I tried to make macarons and they came out looking like sad, flat cookies. My neighbor's dog wouldn't even eat them. Emma giggled. That's really bad. It was tragic, Madison agreed. What about you two? What do you do for fun? We go to the park, Emma said, and we play board games. And on Saturdays we have pancake breakfast, and Daddy lets me flip one even though I usually mess it up. She's actually getting pretty good, Connor added. Only 2 pancakes on the floor last week. That was an improvement, Emma said seriously. Madison found herself laughing again, really laughing, the kind that came from her belly. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? We also have movie nights, Connor said. Every Friday. Emma picks the movie, I make popcorn, and we build a fort out of blankets in the living room. That sounds amazing, Madison said, and she meant it. There was something so wholesome, so intentional about the life Connor had built with his daughter. What about Christmas? Emma asked Madison. What do you do for Christmas? The question caught Madison off guard. Oh, well, my parents are in Arizona now. They usually do Christmas with my brother's family in Phoenix. And I usually work. Someone has to cover the lab during the holidays. You work on Christmas? Emma's eyes were wide with horror. Sometimes. It's not so bad. But it was. Madison knew it was. She'd spent the last 3 Christmases alone in her apartment, telling herself she didn't mind, that it was just another day. That's really sad, Emma said. Nobody should be alone on Christmas. Emma, Connor said gently. Not everyone celebrates the way we do, but she should have somewhere to go. Emma insisted. She turned to Madison. You should come to our house for Christmas. Emma, Daddy, she's alone. We have extra space. And you always make too much food anyway. Connor looked mortified. Madison, I'm so sorry. She doesn't understand. It's okay, Madison said quickly. But something inside her chest had cracked open at Emma's earnest insistence that she shouldn't be alone. Do you have anywhere else to go? Emma pressed. Madison shook her head. No, sweetheart. But I'm used to it, really. Being used to it doesn't make it okay, Emma said with the blunt wisdom of childhood. Right, Daddy. Connor looked at Madison, something unreadable in his eyes. She's right. Just because you're used to something doesn't mean you should have to accept it. The weight of that statement hung in the air, applying not just to Madison's solitary Christmases, but to all the ways they'd both accepted loneliness as a permanent condition. I'll tell you what, Connor said finally. Why don't we exchange numbers? And if you don't end up with other plans? The offer stands. Emma's right, we always make too much food. And it would be nice to have another adult to talk to while she's tearing through presents at 5 in the morning. 5:30, Emma corrected. You said I have to wait until 5:30. Madison smiled through the emotion tightening her throat. Can I think about it? Of course. They exchanged phones, entering their numbers. Madison's fingers trembled slightly as she typed. This felt bigger than just contact information. It felt like a door opening, like a possibility she'd stopped believing in. An hour later, they were standing in the restaurant's parking lot. The temperature had dropped and Madison could see her breath in the December air. Emma was drooping with tiredness, leaning against her father's leg. Thank you, Madison said. For tonight. For not letting me sit there alone feeling sorry for myself. Thank you for giving us a chance, Connor replied. Not everyone would have said yes to a random invitation from a 6-year-old and her awkward dad. You're not awkward. I'm a little awkward. Maybe a little, Madison conceded, smiling. Emma tugged on her father's hand. Daddy, can we give Madison a hug goodbye? Connor looked at Madison, questioning. She nodded, crouching down to Emma's level. The little girl wrapped her arms around Madison's neck with the unself-conscious affection of childhood. I'm glad you weren't alone tonight, she whispered. You're nice. I hope you come for Christmas. Madison squeezed her eyes shut, fighting tears. I'm glad I wasn't alone too, sweetheart. When Emma pulled back, Connor extended his hand to help Madison stand. But instead of letting go, he held on for a moment longer. I meant what I said earlier, he told her quietly. About you being brave and kind and real. Don't let one idiot make you doubt that. I won't, Madison promised. Good. He released her hand slowly. Drive safe, okay? You too. She walked to her car, hyper-aware that they were still watching. When she turned back to wave, Emma was waving enthusiastically, and Connor raised his hand in a more subdued farewell. As Madison drove home through the Chicago streets, Christmas lights blurring past her window, she realized something. She'd arrived at that restaurant expecting heartbreak. She'd found something else entirely. Hope. But what Madison didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that Connor was standing in that parking lot, watching her taillights disappear, thinking exactly the same thing. And Emma, being carried to the car half asleep, was already planning how to make sure Madison came for Christmas. Because some stories don't start with perfect meet-cutes or carefully planned dates. Some stories start with a blind date disaster, a bold little girl, and two lonely people brave enough to take a chance on something unexpected. Madison didn't text Connor that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Not because she didn't want to, but because she was terrified. She'd felt something in that restaurant, something real and unexpected and powerful. And that scared her more than all the disappointing dates combined. Because disappointing dates meant nothing. They were easy to walk away from. But Connor? Emma? That felt like something she could lose. And she wasn't sure she could handle another loss. She threw herself into work, spent 14-hour days in the lab, told herself she was being pragmatic, realistic, that one dinner didn't mean anything. But every night she'd pull up Connor's contact in her phone and stare at it, her thumb hovering over the text field. It was December 13, 3 days after the restaurant, when her phone buzzed with a message. From Connor. Her heart stopped. "Hi Madison. I hope this isn't weird. Emma has asked about you approximately 47 times since Tuesday night. She wanted me to send you a picture she drew. No pressure to respond, but I'd love to hear how you're doing." Below the message was a photo. A child's drawing in crayon. 3 stick figures, one tall with yellow hair, one small with yellow hair, and one with brown hair in a green triangle dress. Below it, in Emma's careful first-grade handwriting, "Miss Madison, we miss you. Love Emma and Daddy." Madison pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She texted back immediately. "Tell Emma her drawing is beautiful and it's going on my refrigerator tonight. I've been thinking about you both too." 3 dots appeared. Then, she'd be thrilled. "Listen, I know this is probably forward, but would you want to get coffee sometime? Just the 2 of us. Emma's with her grandparents this Saturday afternoon." Madison's hands shook as she typed. "I would love that." They met at a coffee shop in Wicker Park. Madison arrived first, nervous in a way she hadn't been since high school. She'd changed her outfit 3 times that morning. When Connor walked in, he looked just as nervous. He was wearing a grey Henley and jeans, his hair slightly damp from a recent shower. "Hi," he said, smile tentative. "Hi." They ordered their drinks, a latte for her, black coffee for him, and found a corner table away from the crowd. For a moment, neither spoke. Then they both started talking at once. "I wasn't sure if..." "I'm really glad you..." They laughed, tension breaking. "You first," Connor said. Madison took a breath. "I wasn't sure if I should text you. The other night was. It was amazing. But it also scared me, because I felt something, and I don't know if that makes me crazy or if..." "You're not crazy," Connor interrupted gently. "I felt it too. I've been thinking about you constantly for 3 days. Emma hasn't stopped talking about you. And I keep wondering if I imagined it. If maybe it was just a weird situation that felt like more than it was." "It didn't feel like nothing to me," Madison said quietly. "It didn't feel like nothing to me either." "So what do we do?" Madison asked. "Because I'll be honest, Connor, I'm terrible at this. I don't know how to date. I don't know how to let someone in. And with you, there's Emma to consider. And I would never want to mess that up." "Hey." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Let's not overcomplicate this. Let's just see each other. Get to know each other. No pressure, no timeline. Just 2 people who met in a weird way and want to see if there's something real here." "What about Emma?" "Emma already adores you," Connor said with a smile. "But you're right to be careful. She's been through a lot. I won't introduce someone into her life seriously unless I know it's going somewhere. But she already knows me." "True. But there's a difference between Dad's friend Madison And Dad's girlfriend, Madison. We can take our time figuring out which one feels right. Madison nodded slowly. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Terrifying, but reasonable. Connor laughed. Welcome to dating a single parent. Everything is terrifying. How do you usually handle this? Dating, I mean. He grimaced. Honestly, I don't. Those 3 dates I mentioned? One was with a colleague's friend who spent the entire dinner talking about her ex. One was with someone from a dating app who asked me on the second date how I felt about having more kids immediately. And one was with a genuinely nice woman who met Emma once and then ghosted me. She ghosted you? After meeting Emma? Yeah. I think the reality of dating someone with a kid hit her, and she just disappeared. Which was honestly worse than if she'd just been honest. Madison squeezed his hand. I can't imagine doing that. Emma is part of who you are. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve either of you. That's what my mom used to say. Before she died. Connor's voice went soft. She kept telling me that the right woman wouldn't see Emma as a complication. She'd see us as a package deal. And she'd want both of us. Your mom sounds like she was wise. She was. She was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer when Emma was 3. She had 8 months. Not enough time. He paused, collecting himself. She never got to see Emma start school, lose her first tooth, learn to read. But she left her letters. One for each birthday until Emma turns 18. I keep them in a safe. Madison felt tears threatening. That's beautiful, Connor. It's all I have left of her. That and the locket Emma wears. My mom made me promise 2 things before she died. That I'd make sure Emma knew she was loved. And that I wouldn't give up on finding love myself. She said being a good father meant showing Emma what a healthy relationship looked like. Have you? Given up, I mean? Connor met her eyes. I was starting to. Until 3 nights ago, when my daughter decided to interrogate a beautiful stranger in a restaurant. Madison felt warmth spreading through her chest. I'm glad she did. Me too. So, Madison Wells, medical researcher, terrible baker, mystery novel enthusiast, will you go on an actual date with me? Dinner, movie, something normal people do. Define normal people, Madison teased. Okay, something normal people who met because of a blind date disaster do. Yes, Madison said. Yes, I will absolutely go on a date with you. Connor's smile was radiant. Friday night? Emma will be with Miss Carolyn. Friday night sounds perfect. They talked for 2 more hours. About everything. About nothing. Connor told her about his favorite buildings in Chicago and why he became an architect. Madison shared stories from the lab, made him laugh with tales of research disasters. They discovered they both loved the same mystery author, both hated olives, both had a secret weakness for terrible reality TV. When they finally left the coffee shop, Connor walked her to her car. Thank you, he said, for giving this a chance. I know it's complicated. Everything worth having is complicated, Madison replied. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was soft, tentative, perfect. When they broke apart, both were smiling. Friday, Connor promised. Friday, Madison confirmed. Friday came faster than Madison expected. She met Connor at a small French bistro in Old Town, his choice, because he'd heard her mention she'd never had authentic French onion soup. He was already waiting outside when she arrived, holding a single red rose. Too much? He asked, suddenly looking uncertain. It's perfect, Madison said, accepting it. Dinner was magical. They shared escargot, even though Madison had never tried it. She made a face on the first bite, and Connor laughed so hard wine almost came out of his nose. They talked about their childhoods, his in suburban Chicago, hers in a small town in Ohio. They shared dreams and fears and embarrassing stories. Okay, confession time, Connor said over dessert. I Googled you after our coffee date. Madison raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Your research on lupus treatment protocols was published in a pretty prestigious journal last year. I read the abstract. Understood maybe 30% of it. But I was impressed. You read my research paper? I tried to. The words were very long and scientific. Madison laughed. Most people's eyes glaze over when I mention my work. I like that you're passionate about it, Connor said. I like that you're trying to help people, even if it's in ways most of us will never see or understand. It matters. What made you want to become an architect? Madison asked. Connor leaned back, considering. When I was 8, my grandfather took me to see the Chicago Architecture Foundation tour. And the guide told us about how buildings aren't just structures, they're stories. They're statements about what we value, what we dream, what we want to leave behind. I fell in love with that idea, that I could create something that would outlast me, that would shape how people move through the world. Have you created something you're proud of? A few small projects, community center in Pilsen, an affordable housing complex in Bronzeville. Nothing famous, but they matter to the people who use them. That's enough for me. And Emma? Madison asked gently. Does she understand what you do? Connor smiled. She tells people her daddy makes houses but prettier, which is surprisingly accurate for a 6-year-old. She's remarkable. You've done an incredible job with her. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together, Connor admitted. Work meetings and parent-teacher conferences and making sure she eats vegetables and doesn't stay up too late. Trying to be both parents in one. It's exhausting, but you show up, Madison said firmly. Every single day you show up for her. That's what matters. Connor reached across the table, taking her hand. Can I tell you something? And you can't laugh. Okay. Emma told me this morning that she prayed you'd be her new mommy. Madison's breath caught. Connor, I know. I told her that's not how it works, that grown-up relationships take time, that we're just getting to know each other. But she said, and I quote, I already know she's nice, and she was sad like Daddy, and now you're both happy. That's how it works. 6-year-old logic. It's terrifying how often she's right. He squeezed her hand. I'm not saying that to pressure you. I want to be honest. Emma's already attached to you. And if this doesn't work out, it's going to hurt her. So I need to know if you're really in this. Because I can handle getting hurt. But I can't watch my daughter go through another loss. Madison looked into his eyes, those blue-grey eyes that held so much hope and fear, and exhaustion and love. And she knew. I'm in, she said quietly. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm in. Because I felt something the moment Emma walked up to my table. And I feel something every time I'm with you. And I don't want to walk away from that. Connor's smile was brilliant. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her right there in the restaurant, not caring who saw. And for the first time in years, Madison felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. After dinner, they walked along the riverwalk, bundled in coats, watching the city lights reflect on the water. So, Connor said casually, about Christmas, Madison echoed. Emma hasn't stopped talking about it. She's already planning what cookies you'll make together, even though I told her you're a disaster in the kitchen, and she's decided. You need to help decorate our tree because apparently I do it boring. Madison laughed. I've never decorated a tree with a 6-year-old. It's an experience. Lots of enthusiasm, zero symmetry, and all the ornaments end up on the bottom 3 feet of the tree. Sounds perfect. Connor stopped walking, turning to face her. I know it's fast. I know we've only been on 2 dates. But I really want you to spend Christmas with us. Not as a pity invite, but because I want you there. We both do. Madison felt tears pricking her eyes. For years, she'd spent holidays alone, telling herself it was fine, that she didn't need anyone, that she was complete by herself, that standing there with Connor, the Chicago wind whipping around them, Christmas lights twinkling on the buildings above, she realized something. She wasn't incomplete without someone else. That life was so much richer when you had someone to share it with. "I'd love to spend Christmas with you," she said. "Both of you." Connor pulled her into a hug, and they stood there on the riverwalk, holding each other, both of them barely believing this was real. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Madison and Connor saw each other as often as their schedules allowed. Coffee dates before work, lunch meetings downtown, long phone calls after Emma went to bed. They texted constantly mundane things, important things, everything in between. Madison met Emma twice more. Once for hot chocolate at a cafe, where Emma told her everything about first grade in breathless run-on sentences. And once for a movie animated Christmas film that Emma had been dying to see. Connor bought them all popcorn, and Madison found herself sandwiched between father and daughter, feeling like part of something bigger than herself. Emma held her hand during the scary parts. Connor put his arm around her shoulders during the happy ending. It felt like family. A week before Christmas, Connor invited Madison over to help decorate. She arrived at his house, a charming 2-story craftsman in Lincoln, square with a box of ornaments she'd had in storage for years but never used. "You came!" Emma shrieked, flinging open the door. "I promised, didn't I?" The house was warm and lived in. Photos of Emma covered the walls, baby pictures, school pictures, candid shots of her laughing. There were pictures of Connor too, and an older couple Madison assumed were his parents. "That's my grandma and grandpa," Emma confirmed, following her gaze. "Grandma's in heaven now. That Daddy says she's watching over us." "I'm sure she is," Madison said softly. Connor appeared from the kitchen, flour on his shirt. "We're attempting sugar cookies. It's going about as well as expected." The afternoon was chaotic and perfect. They decorated the tree while Christmas music played. Emma insisted on telling Madison the story behind every ornament. They baked cookies, some burned, some raw in the middle, but a few came out surprisingly decent. They drank hot cider and watched How the Grinch Stole Christmas. At one point, Emma fell asleep between them on the couch. Connor carefully carried her upstairs while Madison cleaned up the cookie disaster in the kitchen. When he came back down, he found Madison at the sink, sleeves rolled up, humming along to the Christmas music still playing softly. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I don't mind." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Thank you. For doing dishes? For being here? For being patient with Emma? For giving us a chance?" Madison turned in his arms, soap suds still on her hands. "Thank you for seeing me that night. For not letting me eat alone. For being brave enough to text me first. Madison, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped. "Okay, I'm falling for you. Fast and hard, and in a way that probably should scare me, but doesn't. And I know it's only been 2 weeks. And I know that's crazy." "It's not crazy," Madison interrupted. "Because I'm falling for you too. Both of you." Connor kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, they were both smiling. "Spend Christmas Eve with us," he whispered. "Sleep over in the guest room. Wake up with us Christmas morning. Let Emma show you what 5:30 on Christmas looks like when you're 6 years old." "Yes," Madison said without hesitation. "Yes to all of it." Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow blanketing Chicago. Madison drove to Connor's house in the early evening, her car packed with presents, probably too many presents, that she'd gotten carried away shopping for Emma. Emma was vibrating with excitement when she arrived. They had dinner lasagna that Connor had spent hours making, Emma's favorite. They watched Christmas movies and drank eggnog. Madison helped Emma set out cookies and milk for Santa. "Do you think he'll like the cookies we made?" Emma asked anxiously. "He's going to love them," Madison assured her. "Even the burned ones?" "Especially the burned ones. It shows character." Connor laughed from the doorway. "Did you tell her about Santa's elf handbook? The one that says burned cookies are a delicacy at the North Pole?" "I was getting there," Madison said, grinning. They put Emma to bed together. Connor read her a story while Madison sat in the rocking chair in the corner of the room. Emma's room was pink and purple, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and a bookshelf overflowing with picture books. "Good night, Daddy," Emma said sleepily. "Good night, Miss Madison." "Good night, sweetheart," they said in unison. Connor kissed her forehead. "Remember, you have to actually sleep for Santa to come." "I know, Daddy. I'm 6 3/4. I know the rules." They tiptoed out, leaving the door cracked. In the hallway, Connor pulled Madison close. "She called you Miss Madison," he whispered. "Not just Madison. Is that significant?" "It's respectful. It means she sees you as someone important. Someone who deserves a title." They went downstairs and assembled presents. Connor had gotten Emma a bike pink with streamers on the handlebars. Madison had bought her art supplies, books, and a stuffed animal that looked like the reindeer she carried everywhere. "You didn't have to get her so much," Connor said. "I wanted to." At midnight, they stood by the tree, the only light coming from the twinkling ornaments and the street lamp outside. "Merry Christmas, Madison," Connor said softly. "Merry Christmas, Connor." He handed her a small box. "I know we said no gifts, but..." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm heart. "Connor, it's beautiful. There's an inscription." She turned it over. "Every heart has a story. Yours brought us together." Madison's vision blurred with tears. "I don't have anything for you. You gave me something better. You gave me hope. You gave Emma someone to believe in. You gave us a reason to look forward instead of just surviving." "You did the same for me," Madison whispered. "I was so lonely, Connor. I didn't even realize how lonely until that night. Until Emma asked me why I was sad. And now? Now I'm the happiest I've been in years." They kissed under the Christmas tree, surrounded by presents and hope and the promise of something beautiful just beginning. "Daddy, Miss Madison, Santa came, Santa came." It was 5:27 a.m. Emma's voice could probably be heard 3 houses away. Madison jolted awake in the guest room, momentarily disoriented. Then she remembered. Christmas morning. Connor's house. Emma. She threw on her robe and hurried downstairs, where Connor was already up, looking adorably rumpled in flannel pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair sticking up. Emma was frozen at the bottom of the stairs, eyes wide, taking in the transformed living room. "He ate the cookies," she gasped, "and the milk is gone. And there's a bike. Should we see what else he brought?" Connor asked, grinning. The next hour was pure chaos. Emma tore through presents with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been waiting all year for this moment. She loved everything: the bike, the art supplies, the books, the stuffed reindeer that Madison had bought. "Thank you, Miss Madison," she said, throwing her arms around Madison's neck. "This is the best Christmas ever." "You're welcome, sweetheart." Connor and Madison exchanged gifts too. She'd given him a book on Chicago architecture he'd been wanting. He'd given her a first edition of her favorite mystery novel. After presents, Connor made pancakes Emma's tradition. They ate in their pajamas, syrup dripping everywhere, Emma talking non-stop about how she couldn't wait to ride her bike when the snow melted. Later, while Emma was in the living room playing with her new toys, Madison and Connor stood in the kitchen, coffee cups in hand, watching the snow fall outside. "I keep thinking about that night," Madison said quietly. 2 weeks ago. How I almost didn't go to that restaurant. How I almost cancelled because I was so anxious. I'm glad you didn't." "Me too. Because I would have missed this." All of this. Connor set down his coffee cup, turning to face her fully. Madison, I know it's only been 2 weeks. I know that's too fast by any normal standard. But I need you to know something. Okay. I'm serious about this. About you, about us. I haven't felt this way since maybe ever. And I'm not saying we need to rush anything. But I want you to know that I'm all in. For however long you'll have me. Madison felt tears streaming down her face. I'm all in too. I came to that restaurant expecting the worst night of my life. And instead, I found you. Both of you. I found a family I didn't know I was looking for. Does that mean you'll be here for New Year's? Emma's voice piped up from the doorway. Neither of them had realized she was listening. They laughed through their tears. Yes, sweetheart, Madison said. I'll be here for New Year's. And Valentine's Day? Emma, Connor warned gently. And my birthday? It's in April. I'm going to be 7. I'll be here for all of it, Madison promised. If your dad will have me. Connor pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Forever sounds good to me. Emma squealed and ran over, hugging both their legs. This is the best Christmas miracle ever. And standing there in Connor's kitchen, Emma hugging them both. Snow falling softly outside. The smell of pancakes and coffee and pine needles filling the air. Madison realized Emma was right. This was a miracle. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. 2 weeks ago, she'd been stood up by a man who couldn't be bothered to send more than a 3-word text. She'd felt broken and alone and ready to give up on love entirely. And then a 6-year-old girl with braids and no filter had walked up to her table and asked if she was sad. That question had changed everything. Because Madison had been sad, but she wasn't anymore. She was home. Sometimes the worst nights lead to the best mornings. Sometimes the dates that never happen make room for the connections that change everything. And sometimes a little girl's courage to approach a stranger becomes the beginning of a love story no one saw coming. Madison Wells walked into that restaurant expecting heartbreak. She found hope instead. She found family. She found Connor and Emma, 2 people who taught her that love doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes it looks like a 6-year-old in a red velvet dress who refuses to let anyone eat alone. 3 months later, Madison moved in. 6 months after that, Connor proposed. And when they got married the following December, exactly 1 year after that fateful blind date disaster, Emma was the flower girl, wearing a red velvet dress and carrying a bouquet of roses. At the reception, Emma gave a speech. She was 7 by then, missing 2 front teeth, but still wise beyond her years. My daddy says that family isn't always the people you're born with, she announced to the crowd. Sometimes family is the people who choose you. Madison chose us, and we chose her. And that's the best kind of family there is. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, because everyone there understood what Emma knew instinctively, that the best love stories don't start with perfect plans or ideal circumstances. They start with broken hearts brave enough to stay open, with children bold enough to ask hard questions, with strangers kind enough to say yes to unexpected invitations. They start in restaurant booths between heartbreak and hope, and they end with forever. If this story touched your heart, please don't just keep scrolling. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's been hurt. Someone who's given up on love. Someone who needs to believe in second chances. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had a moment where a stranger's kindness changed your life? What part of Madison and Connor's story hit you the hardest? Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. Stories about real struggles, real sacrifices, real love. Stories that remind us that even in our darkest moments, hope is still possible. Thank you for being part of the Behind Every Heart Stories family. Remember, your story matters, your heart matters, and somewhere out there, someone is waiting to choose you. See you in the next one.